On April 26, 2024, my friends and I recorded a film score with Mission Bay High School here in San Diego for the short film Sprite, Fright. It was an amazing experience, but it's almost a miracle it even happened.
Oh, wow, that's noisy.
My friends and I are super excited to share how we did everything, but before we get there, you should know how we all met.
Yay!
Yay!
Friends, we are here. So, Morgan, you and I met first. It was October 2023, and I had just quit my job, and I think you sent me a DM, or maybe I sent a DM, I don't really remember.
I think I reached out because I really liked your carousels
on
Instagram, and they were really helpful to me, being someone who's just kind of starting the Instagram journey as a composer. And so I just reached out to say, hey, great content, loving it, getting a lot from it.
And then I think around this time too, I was also catching up with Marilynn at some point, I wrote in my notes.
Gosh, I don't even remember what day it was. It was a hot day though, so it was probably earlier in the year before it got cold, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We grabbed lunch because a mutual friend was like, wait, you're working on film music? And I was like, yeah, you didn't know that? She's like, well, guess what? A friend of mine, we went to high school together. Funny, do you know Cheska? I was like, I remember the name, but I wasn't close with you in high school. So it's just I know who you're talking about, but I don't know personally who you're talking about. She's like, well, guess what? My friend just quit her job and started working as a composer. And she's done a couple short films. You should totally get in contact. And I was like, wow, okay, well, I don't know how to reach Cheska. So she's like, don't worry, I got you.
After that, I think we met again a second time, and then this idea of recording a high school orchestra came up.
Yeah, so I had just attended the LAFCI, which is a workshop designed for media composers to learn film conducting. And during that course, they recommended that if you want to get your music played and if you want experience conducting and you're just starting out, best way to kind of do that is to reach out to school orchestras who are usually always looking for new music to play. And that really inspired me because I felt well, I can probably pull that off and sort of get my foot more in the door and achieve a complete project, if I go that route. Because I was feeling frustrated that I hadn't been able to record a score of mine live to picture yet. So being in San Diego and not being in LA yet, I thought, well, I'm gonna pool my resources here where I'm living and see if I can do something. I also had a demo reel that I had planned for the year that I'm still working on, and I thought, well, it'd be great to have an example of something that's been recorded live for one of the demos. And also there's kind of a shortage of music services, music prep teams who are ready to record orchestras specifically for film in San Diego. And so when we met in February, I brought that up and said, I'm looking to start a music services company or be known for that in San Diego. I want to record a school orchestra and some music that I've written live to picture. And then that appealed to you, I think,
yeah.
and we started kind of nerding out about all the possibilities of what that would bring, and then you mentioned, well, I would be really interested in documenting that and helping to sort of being the marketing, the social media, that side of it. You were interested in being involved. And then you mentioned, well, I know this person, Marilynn, who might be willing to record it. And from there, I reached out to a bunch of music instructors and teachers in San Diego School District, and a couple people wrote back, and one of them happened to be this guy, Jean-Paul Belmont from Mission Bay High School. And then the rest is history.
Out of, how many emails did you send, and how many responded?
I sent out about 25 emails, and out of the 25, 5 people responded. 2 of those people, they wrote back and said, well, yeah, I mean, that sounds interesting, certainly be able to get you podium time, but I don't know about the logistics of recording and blah, blah, blah. And then, I kind of felt well, that's probably, those people with those resources, that's probably not the best option. And then Jean-Paul wrote and was extremely enthusiastic about the idea and kind of wanted to go for it. It takes a lot of cold emails and reaching out to people and, you know, making connections to really find people that want to hear you out and possibly work with you. So it started by basically just looking up like music instructors in the San Diego school district, and then there happened to be a county, you know, government kind of web page with a list of people. And so that's where I kind of pulled contacts, and so yeah, you know, you'll find emails somewhere. Just searching around is a great place to start for looking for people.
Wake up. Stay
Whoops.
Okay, so I want to shift now towards like how Marilynn started preparing for the project. So after like we had met like separately, we met for sushi like around March or February, I think.
March, yeah.
March. When we all met and you learned that we were gonna do this, like what was going through your mind? We were like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough equipment.
You know,
like, what are we gonna do?
It came in phases, I think, because like as a person who works as a sound technician on the daily, like I'm constantly met with like, okay, I need you to pull this equipment, I need to get this, we have to get this hung. So like my brain was like, okay, great, logistically speaking, I'm probably gonna need this. And in the moment, I think I hadn't fully been thinking about what was readily already available to us. So in the moment, I was like, yeah, I mean, this is doable. This is possible. And I know, like, when we first met, Morgan was like, yeah, I'm thinking of doing, like, a small ensemble. And that changed very quickly through the process. And I remember in the beginning, I was like, okay, well, I mean, if it's a small chamber ensemble, say like at most 8 to 12 people, easy. We can make that work with limited amount of equipment. I've done that before. I mean, scraping by as a college student, you manage to do what you can. But then very quickly, that became like, oh, actually, we're doing a full ensemble orchestra. And then that's when I was kind of like, hold on a moment. I'm gonna definitely need to think out the logistics of that based on what's readily available to us, because that's definitely a bigger project than, say, recording 8 to 12 musicians. Now you're suddenly doing like a 64-piece orchestra. And like knowing on a professional level, like, okay, well, most of the time when these things happen, like in an actual professional grade studio that has all the equipment ready, you're like miking individually certain instruments, you're focusing on key parts, and then you have like the overhead miking for ambience, and then you have like all this other stuff. Like that alone can get upwards to like 100+ microphones, which I'm like, there's no way we're scraping together 100 microphones. I don't even think I have that many at my workplace. So, like, I was like, okay, well, we're obviously going to have to make some compromises here. And I think that was the hardest part, really, was figuring out, like, where can I find spaces to compromise on the equipment, but still produce a project with as much integrity as possible to keep the projects in a place where like, we wouldn't be like, oh, I'm kind of nervous to share this with the world. Because I've worked a couple projects where, like, I finished and be like, yeah, that's never showing the light of day. But I mean, we all have those projects. But definitely, this was a long process. I remember going into work and, like, even, like, during my breaks, I would, like, have, like, a notepad and be like, okay, I've talked to John Paul, and he says he's got this many microphones, we've got this many cables, and his in-house system that he's already wired up into his space looks like this. The board that he has can support up to this many inputs. It's like, great, well, am I going to try to mic every instrument? And I think working from a professional standpoint where, like at the Old Globe Theater, we typically will mic every instrument. My brain was still wired to think like that. So it was very stressful in the beginning, being like, oh, shoot, if I'm trying to mic everything, I can't mic every instrument. We don't have enough inputs for that. I could pull as much equipment as I want from my workplace, but I would still not have in that soundboard enough spaces to do all that. So it was just like, okay, maybe that's not the way to go. Is there other ways to still do this? And I actually remember speaking a lot with a lot of my coworkers that have been working longer than I have in audio. And like, if this was your project, how would you approach mixing or like recording this session? Like what things would you consider doing? And I mean, a lot of them were like, you're crazy, for one. And I was like, thanks, you guys. After that part, what would you say? And they're like, well, realistically speaking, like finding those key moments, like what are those standouts? Which is why I actually am having a conversation with Morgan later, and like, hey, out of all the parts that you showed me in this score, like I see that you have like a xylophone solo bit here, and you have this here. Like, do you want to highlight these moments and make sure we capture those in the overall recording? Because if so, we have to place a microphone closer to that to pick those things up. Otherwise, it's just going to get drowned out. And I think at that point, realizing we had the limitations of like, I can't work with a full setup, then what can we do to capture as much sound? And that's when I decided on area miking, because at that point it's like, well, we have a large ensemble, maybe we can just focus on capturing all of that. But like, so many iterations. I probably had to scrap over like 8 different drafts because it was
We're gonna dive into that in Europe.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping I still have them, but I'll have to like look. But yeah, it was a lot of like writing out and then being like, no, that's not gonna work, and then like writing out another thing and being like, no, that's not gonna work, and then just like, it was almost like doing math in a weird way, because it's like, this is all I've got readily available. I gotta make sure that this is logistically something we can do, and then also realizing there's only 3 of us setting up, so like anything I do bring in has to be something we can like set up easily and then tear down easily. So it was just like, okay.
I don't think that like when we met for dinner and I was kind of explaining everything and you know what I hoped we could do, did the scope of everything occur to...
I think definitely by the end of that meal, I was like, how in the world am I going to record something like this?
Yeah.
Because I think in the beginning, I was trying really hard not to pull anything from my work. I really wanted to see if I could do it without having to like go to my boss and be like, hey, can I like borrow like maybe 5 microphones and some cables and some stuff? Because part of that was like just like not wanting to entangle in a place like that. But
and by the way, Marilynn works on the audio team at the Old Globe. So
yes, I definitely remember like being a little overwhelmed at the end of that, being like, oh gosh, how in the world are we gonna even? Because like even then at the beginning, it was like even if it was 8 to 12 people, it was like I personally only own 1 condenser mic and 1 dynamic microphone. I was like, that's not gonna be able to record 8 people. I can hardly record myself playing an instrument at home with that kind of setup. And so it's just like, okay, well, Morgan's probably got some equipment. We'll see what we have across the 3 of us and we'll work it out. But like, yeah, I remember there was a point in time where I actually had asked myself the question on the way home. I was like, do I have to be that person? Do I have to be that person that's like pragmatically and like kind of a Debbie Downer about it? I'm like, do I have to be that person? I was like, I don't like being this person because I feel like I'm always this person in a project. I don't personally feel like I don't dream and reach for the stars very often. So like seeing you and Cheska be like, I want to go out and do this. Like the whole time we were at that dinner, I was like, wow, that is so cool.
I was so in the dark about it. I was like, I don't know nothing. Like I'm someone who's like very much an outsider to like the orchestral world and like even being a composer. Like I only really started pursuing composing in like 2019. And I had always known you as like this musical person. Like I could see it from a mile away. I knew you were in madrigals. I knew you were like always singing and you were into all these things. And then Morgan, seeing like your profile on Instagram and like that being my first impression of you, of like, oh, she's gone to like these recording sessions and like, you know, all that. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so intimidated. And then like at that dinner, I was just like, I have no idea what's happening, but I'm gonna capture it on video. That's all I
You know, I will say, I'm glad to hear you say that though, because at the same time, sitting at that table, I was sitting here like, look at these 2 people chasing their dreams and like actively pursuing music.
I was like, look at this girl at Old Globe. I was like, wow.
To be fair though, I hadn't been like seriously working on music by the time you guys had contacted me for like 3 to 4 years, so I felt like a fraud sitting at that table and be like, these 2 are like actual active composers, like actually pursuing their dreams and trying to make it and break it into like film industry. And I'm just sitting here like, yeah, I work as a sound technician. It's like tangentially related to like the stuff that we do, but it's like, it's not what I went to school for. And I was like, I haven't written music seriously in any capacity at that time in like 2 years. So it's just like, man, I mean, yeah, I know stuff, but like, I don't know if I could like say I've got like the drive to go and do what you guys were doing. And I was just sitting there in awe, like, do I have the right to be sitting at this table right now?
Well, you hit it. You hit it very well. I mean, just to give some context, like this whole project was volunteer. Nobody got paid to do it. You know, I made that clear when I proposed it to both of you. And throughout the whole, even just talking to you and meeting with you, and then getting to know you that night when we met for dinner. I've never been a part of a project where people were actively on board for anything that I've wanted to do, because it's usually been fairly ambitious and not practical. And this certainly wasn't very practical in the grand scheme of things. You know, you've got your busy show schedule at the Globe. You're a busy composer. You're teaching. You're doing. You know, you're coaching, social media, all this stuff. I'm busy with all of my own stuff, and just, you know, it meant a lot to me that both of you were so on board for something that could totally implode. So that was amazing. And just, you know, hearing your perspectives now, like, it didn't show, you know, on your faces at least, that's what your internal dialogue was. So continually throughout the whole thing, it has amazed me that we were able to do it and that we did it well. And it's also the first time that I've ever had a team where I didn't have to worry about what anyone was doing, because both of you are super ultra professional.
It works so much better when you just have people focused on their task and making sure to support each other in that. It's like, if I can do that, then that's great.
Yeah.
Moving in the right direction.
For sure.
What do you guys want people to get out of this docuseries? Last question.
I think the biggest thing that I would like people to learn from this is that you can make your own opportunities, and you can give back to your community wherever you are just by doing it. It's often expected that anyone who wants to be successful in the film industry or in Hollywood or whatever, that you have to be in Los Angeles. And to a certain point, yeah, maybe that's true for people at certain levels, but no matter where you are in the world, you can do these things. You can make your own opportunities, and you can make things happen. I just want to, I hope this project inspires people to do that, and also for there just to be more exposure of an education on you know, the intricacies of you know, pairing music with film, and how to record, and you know, how to do these things. So yeah.
On a personal level, I'd say for me, it's kind of nice to just be able to geek out and like nerd out about something I really love, and getting to share that with people, because I know personally I've always been too scared to share things that I love for various reasons that I will probably explore in other capacities as we go along. But with all the insecurities that I felt, like realizing like, yeah, there's a lot you can do. And I think a big part of it that I've always wanted people to realize is like there's support for things. And there's actually one thing I've discovered working, whether it's at my current job at the Old Globe or even on this project, is that strangely enough, there's a lot more people who are eager to do things. It's just a matter of working up the courage to put yourself out there to find those people, because they're there. And I know for me, being like the shy, intimidated person to like reach out and like really branch out, I forget that there are those people. Now that like I'm around those people more often and seeing like, oh yeah, people want to celebrate and get together and do these things, it's like just finding those people.
Community.
Yeah, like the community is the biggest thing. And I think sharing that is a big thing too. I feel very strongly about sharing small communities and branching out with that, because it's like I'm not aiming to like Hans Zimmer famous. In fact, that seems stressful. But as a person with anxiety, that actually seems very anxiety-inducing. But if I could even just create that kind of community with my closest friends in my neighborhood, then to me that's a victory, because at the end of the day, that's kind of the people that I care most about anyhow, the people that I'm interacting with on the daily. And it's like, when I go to make music, it's because I love working with people. At least for me, I love that collaborative aspect of coming together and making art together, and the fact that it means so many things to different people. Like, I want that to be a shared human experience, because I feel like it is a connection to our human experience, and like engaging with it in that way, at least for me, it matters to share that.
For me, I felt like, as someone who was very intimidated by, you know, performers and the orchestra from like a really young age, realizing that I could be a part of this world and not feel like I was dumb, or like, you know, that I wasn't talented enough, or basically just like musically illiterate. Like, I did take piano lessons growing up, but once I became a composer, it became aware to me like how much I don't know and how enormous something like producing a score can be, especially after, you know, discovering these fly on the wall like orchestral recording sessions and realizing that just writing the music is just one teeny tiny part of like making music and putting it to picture. So I was like really glad to realize that if I can be here and feel like, you know, I'm not dumb. It's like, it sounds really silly, but I hope that
It's
people
not silly
see.
at all, yeah.
I hope that people can see that this space isn't just for like the super elite musical prodigies, genius composer type of people, or what we perceive to be those types of people. It can be for everyday people like you and me and everyone. So I just hope that by doing this, people can, you know, do something similar, or like basically spark their imagination and, you know, create their opportunity in a different way. Because what we did, I don't want it to be like special in the sense that we were the first persons to do it and the last, you know, people to do it. So
We want to be a catalyst.
yeah.
To start a new movement of people being, because the orchestra and the orchestral world in classical music and even film music to a great degree isolates people from it. It's a very insider exclusive environment, unfortunately. We did this to prove that it doesn't have to be that way, and we wanted to inspire people to be involved with orchestral music and to bring that back, because there's no way that, you know, there's no better way for an audience to connect with a film than with music that is played by live players. And that tradition has to start by communicating it to a new generation of musicians and inspiring a new generation of composers and music professionals to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I really resonate with, what you said.
Yay. Okay, so the next episode's gonna be on Marilynn's channel.
Woo.
So I'm gonna be asking her about how she prepared everything, how she planned everything, the ideas that didn't make it, and hopefully like we can look at your drawings and like how you
to find them.
Yeah, so at some point there will be like a little video here, be like, oh, watch it over here. So I'm gonna ask you to be like, watch my episode. I'm pointing here. And take a look into the camera and just point that way. Yay! Okay, that's it.
Huzzah!